Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, joined by Big Handsome from the Steel City. He's got boots on the ground. We'll talk some Big 12 comparables to what we expect to see in NC State. And looking back to day one of Red Raider football spring camp. We're into it next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris joining us on the scene from Pittsburgh, PA. The Steel City is where Big Handsome is coming to us from today in advance of Texas Tech and NC State opening up the NCAA tournament, 6 seed versus 11 seed. We'll get to what's happening on the ground there and also get to any possible comparisons to some of what we've already seen with the run through the Big 12 conference, team or individual wise, as it relates to the Wolfpack of NC State. And of course, now with a day of spring football camp underway, we'll get to a couple of notable things and some individuals, position groups standing out as we kick that off yesterday near Jones Stadium. But Chris, you made it safely there. That is a live shot on the screen. He's standing on the big yellow bridge. That's yeoman's work, folks. Glad you made it safely, Chris. A little bit different than West Texas, I imagine. I don't know how deep your Pittsburgh roots or experience may run, but quite a different feel, I imagine, than the LBK.
Yes, it is. We this is, it's very close to Morgantown, and when you land here, it's just a bigger city, obviously, but it's similar landscape to Morgantown. The same river that runs right through Morgantown is kind of what runs through downtown Pittsburgh, I believe, the Allegheny. I think that's right. But yeah, that bridge that you see me pictured in front of right there, that's literally, that bridge is about 500 ish yards from my hotel window. So yeah, it's but I've been fortunate enough to come to several NCAA tournaments with Texas Tech basketball, and it's always somewhat surreal. You show up at these hotels, and there's March Madness stuff all over the place. I mean, it really, you just tell it's a different event. And the NCAA, this is the one thing that I would say that they do well. It's very organized. It's very structured. The Red Raiders later today will have an open practice, and obviously there's 7 other teams at this regional. And all that, but yeah, it's fun times. Yeah, Pittsburgh, my first time to actually spend the night here and stay here and all that stuff. I don't know if I'll ever come back, but I was glad I got to come. How about that?
Well, be careful and just keep your head on a swivel if you're anywhere near a bridge, because bridge people are a different variety, particularly those coming out from under the bridge, late night style. Just keep your head on a swivel is all I can say. But man, this has got to be a lot of fun to be in that type of environment, whether it's at the hotel or whatever. I know that going to a couple of NCAA tournament rounds, Sweet 16 and some others in years gone by, it's just fun to be around a lot of college basketball fans, and there is definitely a different feel in the air, right? I know you probably get a little taste of that when you go to the Big 12 tournament, but you see some familiar faces there. Here you're seeing somebody maybe new to you altogether, so a festive vibe. Probably is what you're feeling there.
Well, yeah, it's a total unknown. Everybody's far away from home for the most part. None of these matchups have taken place in the regular season or anything like that. And, you haven't played anybody, you certainly haven't played NC State since the 50s, I think is right. And you haven't played anybody in the ACC in general. I do think the common opponents between you and NC State this year was Vanderbilt and BYU, ironically enough. But yeah, these are fun. It's fun times, and you just don't ever want to take it for granted. It's very difficult to make it to this tournament, and it's even harder to win games here. But if you do, my gosh, is it rewarding? And we talk about those years and the teams that win games in March, more than we do any other team, right? I mean, that's just kind of how it works. This is when you can make the news and kind of create a bit of a legacy for yourself based on what you do here. So they'll have an open practice later today at the PPG Paints Arena, I think is what it's called, where the Pittsburgh Penguins play, which is, I think, about a little less than a mile from where I'm talking to you from right now. And
what are we talking, 10, 15,000, or do you have any idea on the number?
I think it holds 15. Yeah, I think you're give or take right around there. It's obviously a professional hockey arena. And so, it's state of the art and all that stuff, but it's mainly, that's the primary tenant is the Penguins. So it's a big hockey place up here. So, which is not really my deal, man. I'm not good on the ice. I'm just gonna tell you right now, not real good on the ice, man.
You're right at home. I can tell. Chris, I know as you get closer to tip off, obviously getting set for the ball game and diving a little further into what to make of the Wolfpack. Obviously, arguably the hottest team in the country. And I'm wondering, as you're studying them a little bit more closely, do you see anything, notice anything that you feel like you could compare or contrast, whether it relates to a Big 12 team that we might have seen already, or maybe even some individuals that we've seen within the Big 12 conference that we'll see again Thursday night, at least in an NC State uniform?
Yeah, Calvin, I've been asked that several times, like, hey, who does NC State compare to in the Big 12? Give me a Big 12 comparison. And I don't know that there is one that would be too close to it. But I as I started to prepare, because who NC State is, or who they were, okay, this is a very confident team right now. I think they probably have a lot of belief, and they're hot and all those things, and confidence and momentum are scary things. But prior to that, there was a lot of just average, okay, with who they were. 17-14, they had lost 7 of 9 coming into the ACC tournament before they got hot. But as I started to, you look at their individual pieces, I think, one of the guys that you're going to hear most about when the game tips off on Thursday is DJ Horn. He actually played at Arizona State, I think, a year ago with Devin and Warren, okay?
Really?
Which is interesting, yeah. And he's from the Raleigh, North Carolina area, or I don't know if it's right there in Raleigh or just the general area, but he kind of, basically transferred out of Arizona State and came back home. But who he reminds me of, a good Big 12 player comparison would be, and I've got a couple of these, but DJ Horn kind of reminds me of what you saw with Raekwon Battle for West Virginia. And what Raekwon Battle is he's a gunner. I mean, he takes bad shots, but a lot of them go in. He just is that skilled to where he doesn't really play necessarily well within the team. He's not looking to make plays for anybody else. It's just like if he gets the ball, he's going to figure out a way to score it. And some of them, like you look at the shots and you're like, what are you doing? And then some of them go in. So you kind of live with it a little bit. But I think DJ Horn is a bit of a better version of Raekwon Battle as far as a more well-rounded player. I think he's a better defender, but he's going to take some questionable shots, but some of them go in. But this kid's averaging like 16, 17 a game. I think he really played well in the ACC tournament after missing that first game versus Louisville. And so that's you a comparison there for DJ Horn, one of the DJs. The other DJ Burns, he's the aircraft carrier. He's listed at 270. He's listed at 275. Ain't no way. My man's got to be pushing 300. And he's a fan favorite. I think everybody loves him. He's got a big smile. But I guess the closest comparison you can come up with, and I do think that DJ Burns is a bit more of a scorer than this guy, but the way they facilitate and the offense runs through them it really reminds you of Ali Khalifa, the Egyptian magician for BYU. He's just a big-time passer. I mean, this kid, Burns has, I think, 99 assists on the year. He's 6'9", 300, or 275. We'll give him the 275. But he's got 100 assists. Second on the team. And he's got, I think, over 60 turnovers to go with it. But, he is a high-level passer. And so they're going to post him up, and he will look to post up anywhere on the floor. He's not looking to get to the block, or it could be, at the top of the key, or it could be on the wing. and he kind of posts, and he just starts looking for the open guy. And a lot of teams will double him, and he's really good at finding, okay, where's the double coming from? And that's where the open shots come from. Because they don't run NC State, and you'll see it, but they don't run a ton of offense. You know, they rely on their defense to kind of create, or they go kind of one-on-one in a lot of situations. But DJ Burns is a guy that can make plays for others. And so, but Ali Khalifa is about the closest thing I can come up with from a Big 12 standpoint. The scariest guy for me, though.
First, today's episode brought to you by Bettor Together. Daily fantasy sports players, listen up. Are you tired of the same old daily fantasy grind? Make a roster, cross your fingers, hope for the best, all alone? Well, Bettor Together is here to shake it up as the first cooperative daily fantasy platform where teamwork makes the dream work. Got a friend who's a fantasy shark? Play with him, not against him. Use him to your advantage. It's a great way to stay connected with your sports crew when gone are the days of watching games together when, work, marriage, newborns get in the way. Pick more or less on real-time player stats, strategize with the bros to boost your odds, and watch yourselves climb up the leaderboard together like Rocky and Apollo. Download Bettor Together now from the App Store and sign up using our promo code LOCKEDON for a free $5 entry into any NCAA basketball contest. Remember the code LOCKEDON because winning alone is fun, but it's better together. Today's episode brought to you by eBay Motors, and eBay Motors has you covered with everything you need to maintain your vehicle and keep that ride or die ride on the road. Or if you're just looking to elevate your car's game to the next level of performance, they got what you're looking for with roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, superchargers, and accessories of all kinds to fit your style. Whether you're looking for speed, power, or design, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts to perfectly fit what you need. So just head over today to ebay.com/motors, where you're going to always find exactly what you're looking for, and with no risk because of eBay's guaranteed fit. Your part is guaranteed to fit just right every time, or your money back, keeping you burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to keep your ride or die ride on the road and moving your life forward at ebay.com/motors. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, exclusions do apply.
The scariest guy for me, though, because these kinds of guys gave Texas Tech problems this year, I want to say that Mohamed Diarra is a very similar version to like a David Gasson for Kansas State, or maybe an Aziz Bandango for Cincinnati. Now, Diarra is not the shot blocker that Bandango is. He's not quite as long, but he's just and he plays the 4, okay, whereas Bandango was playing the 5. But he's kind of the dirty work guy. He's a guy that scores. He's very active. He keeps plays alive. He crashes the glass. He's got some length to him at about 6'10". And he can score. He's just not but it's kind of they don't call a lot for him. He just kind of scores off of putbacks and, in transition, stuff like that. But there's just some Big 12 comparisons. But as I'm telling you this isn't just like a scary matchup on paper, like piece to piece. But if they play their best game, they can absolutely beat you, right? I mean, and they just beat Duke and Carolina and Virginia and on it goes. So they're absolutely good enough to beat you. But on paper, it's not like you're dealing with some first-team All-American or a first-team all-defensive player or whatever that just scares you to death. They're going to need a lot to go right to beat you, and they probably haven't seen anything like you either. Because to me, I think you get DJ Burns away from the basket on defense and get him involved in a lot of ball screens. And I think you could take advantage of that with your smaller guards, your quicker guards, and put him in a bit of a bind, And so there's some yin and yang there to where, okay, well, he's going to cause problems here, but we can cause problems for him on the other end. But fascinating matchup for sure, man. I'm excited about it tomorrow night.
I'm not going to be able to refer to this guy as anything other than the aircraft carrier for the entirety of our matchup timeline running through late into Thursday night. I love that. He should love that if that's not a sanctioned nickname there at NC State, I'd go ahead and give that one for free, I think, courtesy of Locked On Texas Tech. Take it and run with it. The only comparison I have for him is looking like a grown-up version of the kid from the hilarious YouTube video where he's slamming his buddy for not knowing how to make a sandwich. And he asked why he ain't just eat it cold. I don't know if you have dove into that one in your research just yet, but take it in on YouTube. I'm sure there's somebody out there that knows what I'm talking about. And man, when you're talking about a guy who can find open teammates from a center position, I don't know if I'm getting green in the face or not, if you can tell on YouTube, but a little green with envy just thinking about our own big guy who had a knack for some of that as well in Warren Washington. I won't get into a full Warren investigation on today's episode, Chris. I am curious about any appearances or jogging towards the Continental Breakfast Buffet again, like I asked you last week, or just any vibes possibly trending up. I'm sure we might have a better feel for that when we get to game day. But is there anything to touch on today's episode?
I'll tell you what, we will report back later this afternoon when they go through their open practice, but there's still no boot. And
all right.
I'm not going to be surprised, man. I'm not going to be surprised if he gives it a go. You know, I've kind of told you. I just thought if you got to this point after last weekend, I'm like, okay, well, this ship must have sailed. But I'm just not ready to say that yet. You know, and whether he can give you 5 minutes or 10 minutes, I think you take it because you may need it. You may need it some on Thursday night, and if you advance, you're sure going to need it on Saturday versus Big Blue Nation if they get past Oakland. So I'm not ready to write him off just yet. So we'll kind of see what the open practice looks like, and if he's going through some of that. Because if he is, I mean, to me, I think that's a telltale. I think he's rolling. Yeah, I think he's rolling.
Well, that's a good reason to get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you miss nothing that could be trickling out from the scene there in Pittsburgh as the day rolls on. But that would be big news. I was kind of laughing to myself and also participating in some of this myself as well. I mean, we were treating like this video or some of these pictures that were tweeted of Texas Tech getting on an airplane yesterday, like the Zapruder film. I'm like, man, they've got the frame cut off just above Darion Williams, lower extremity, foot, ankle type of area. Can we see a Warren Washington foot or ankle? Boot watch 2024 is ongoing. So stay tuned here on Locked On Texas Tech, as you never know what there might be to learn out there. And boy, that would be a big, big turn of events. And I was joking with some posters. I mean, sort of joking. Honestly, I feel this way. So I don't know if it's a joke at all, but on RedRaidersports.com yesterday, Chris, just about the fact that if there were to be an appearance or was to be an appearance of one or both of those guys in pregame warm-up Thursday night, then I'm ready to take flight on the rocket ship of rapidly rising expectations for this tournament, right? I mean, I know that we're all like, in Grant we trust, and I'm pledging allegiance to that flag. There's no doubt about that. You have found a way to win basketball games against long odds, really for the entirety of the season, but specifically through Big 12 play. But can you imagine the wave of energy that would hit Red Raider Nation if there were to be a couple of appearances from one or both of those guys as you near tip-off on Thursday night? Man, that would just be a totally different feeling, I think, altogether about the chances for this basketball team. I don't want to be unfair to them, but obviously these are two big-time impact players for Tech.
Well, I think that there's an intangible too of, like, because I think Darion is going to play. At what level he's at, that's a great question. Okay, but I just think if Warren is available and he plays at all, I just think that it makes everybody around the team feel better.
Oh, yeah.
It gives you confidence. Like, okay, we got our squad back, and whether – I don't even know if I'm saying if it depends on, what he can do or not. It's not necessarily that, but the fact that he would be available and there to help you and adding whatever he can, I just think it uplifts everybody. I just think there's an intangible there, like a confidence level that it gives you, like, okay, we got the big fella back kind of thing. And so I do think there's something to that for sure.
Well, and that's part of it, not even necessarily considering what percentage you might be at or what he can do for you on the floor. He can go be 7 foot. And I know that can get between the ears of the opposition if you got that guy roaming the paint, right?
and I know this. He ain't no Kevin McCullough and shut it down for the year. I know that.
Oh, no. Anyway, we better get to something else, Chris, because before we're out of here, I do want to take time, obviously, to spend some time in the world of Joey Maguire and Red Raider football. First, this week's March Madness bracket highlight brought to you by our friends at Nissan. Each week, we're picking one team that's standing out, a team that's pushed it further than the rest, just like any of the all-new 2024 Nissan SUVs. And these guys were able to take it to the next level. Today, it's the Red Raider opponent. Coming up Thursday, the NC State Wolfpack, obviously as the Nissan Rogue. They flipped the script and absolutely shocked the nation with a powerhouse run through the ACC tournament and into the big dance. They say, win life, go Rogue. And that's exactly what the Wolfpack did over the weekend. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. Spring camp has sprung. We've got one day now in the books, so it's time to overreact to everything. Well, maybe that time will come a little bit later down the road. But if you want to go ahead and get to that on day one, I'm happy to do it with you there in the YouTube comments for any viewers or listeners out there who found something to pick apart day one. I want to get to a position group that you've been bringing up to me repeatedly, including one individual among the newcomers, the early enrollees who are taking part in spring camp that I know has gotten the attention of the Tech staff for a long time now because he's showing up kind of built like a grown man already. I don't know if the fan base has quite got him on their radar just yet, but maybe they will very soon. But I wanted to start first on the defensive side of the football with a fairly interesting piece of news with a guy I mentioned on yesterday's show in Mike Dingle. I mean, speed incarnate, a member of Wes Kitley's track and field program, and a linebacker here or there, as he was one of those that was, I guess, kind of in the category of trying to maintain, red shirt and eligibility. And, well, we're injured, so we need you. No, now we can maybe put you on the back burner and save some eligibility. He was one of those, and not the only, kind of in that category a season ago. But he did flash a few times whenever he was on the field for Texas Tech as a linebacker. But we hear that apparently Star, that position will be next to his name now heading into the season. Is this just kind of a spring camp, let's try it out, see what it looks like? Do you think this is something that has been intended to take place for a while? What'd you make of that coming across publicly?
Well, I think that they looked at their linebacker rotation, and this is like the fan account for the inside linebackers, okay? Because right. Jacob Rodriguez and
these are our guys.
And Ben Roberts. I mean, yeah, so then I think they really like John Curry. Bryce Ramirez is there. Joey talked about this. It's like because we want to put Dingle's speed on the field somewhere. And I love the way he talked about him after practice yesterday, because it's like he called – this ought to be the kid's nickname, but he's like, chaos just follows him everywhere he goes. So they ought to just put chaos in the back of his jersey and just turn him loose. But,
there we go.
And he called him a disruptor. But if you're fast enough to do anything for Wes Kitley's track team, which Dingle is, that ought to tell you all you need to know about the kind of speed and athleticism he brings to the football field. And I think that they're trying to figure out a way to get his speed on the field. He's not necessarily cleared yet from, last season's injury, but I think that they have an intent on putting him at star and seeing how that goes and creating either a starter or a depth rotational type piece. And if not, they'll move him somewhere else. But, AJ McCarty's there. You've got a couple other people that are there at star as well. But I think they're trying to figure out a way to how can they best use Dingle's speed and athleticism. And at star, it's that hybrid spot. It's up closer to the line of scrimmage. Yes, you get dropped in coverage at times, but you do end up closer to the line of scrimmage, and you play the screen game quite a bit. You go after the quarterback quite a bit. You have to play the run quite a bit. But I think Dingle and his speed and violence and chaos and all the words that Joey used, I think that suits being closer to the line of scrimmage to a T. So I'm here for it. I love the kid.
The aircraft carrier, Captain Chaos. I mean, this is just a nickname kind of episode here today. We're giving them out for free, folks. Before we move on, I was kind of curious. When I first hear this, I'm thinking, okay, linebacker to more so. I know you say it's a hybrid. I was kind of thinking linebacker to DB-ish, linebacker to closer to defensive end edge rusher-ish. How do you kind of categorize what the star is? What's it closer to?
Yeah, and think about who we've seen there in recent years. Muddy Waters. He's a bigger DB. He's a physical DB. Think about Tyler Owens, who was one of the fastest guys, on your team. And I think, the NFL folks certainly seem to think that as well. And that's kind of where Dingle fits in. He's just got a lot of speed. So if you ask him and put him in coverage, I mean, he can run with anybody. And I think he's also got the violent part of being a linebacker where he can play it like Muddy did and be very physical behind the line of scrimmage and play those screen passes. And I mean, we remember how Muddy Waters used to, he had all those tackles for loss and he would just blow up those screen plays and those now screens and quick screens, all that stuff. And I think Dingle's skill set could be utilized very, very well there.
Man, I'm excited to see him back on the field with whatever opportunity that turns into. On the other side of the football, a guy that I made reference to showing up with some grown man-ish kind of physical traits, Cameron Dickey. And he is a part of one of the more interesting position groups, I think, this season. And it may be overlooked to a degree because, here's some expert analysis. You got one of the best running backs in the country to lead that group. But it's kind of still a case of Taj Brooks, and we've got a little bit of a known commodity, though it seems like just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Cameron Valdez. But I'm wondering about Dickey and this position group at large as we kick off spring camp, and Dickey, one of those early enrollees who's taking part.
And Calvin, I think it's important to talk about running backs with the connotation of spring football, because that's where, like, you're not gonna put Taj out there much. He's not gonna, you don't need to. There's nothing Taj Brooks needs to show you in spring football at all, other than him getting in shape and maybe learning a bit more of what Clay Maguire wants on the offensive line if they tweak the different blocking schemes or whatever. But he doesn't need any other reps or being put in any kind of contact stuff. And they'll probably lightly sprinkle that in through the spring. But the point is that you're right. Who's next? And I think it's for Cameron Valdez, for example, it's kind of now or never. Like, it's your time, man. But if you don't take advantage of it now, because he's just we've been big fans of Cameron Valdez on this show. I really thought he would break out last year. It just didn't really happen. He couldn't stay healthy. And that's just kind of unfortunately been a knock on him. There's always kind of something wrong, whether it's a hamstring or, whatever it may be. He just hasn't really shown you the consistency. And we see the flashes and you see what he's capable of, but it's just never consistent. And so I think that Cameron Valdez and a whole host of others are going to get some cracks at this thing. But one of the new guys that I'm most excited about, and I'm going to tell you right now, Cameron Dickey is going to show up here. He's about 5'10", about 215, 218. He's probably the fastest running back you have. I'm going to say to you that he's the fastest running back you've had on your roster since Justin Stockton. How about that?
Really? That's not something I thought was a part of his kind of trait profile. I hadn't heard that yet, at least.
Exactly. And I think he was kind of a sneaky recruit. He played quarterback at a smaller Austin area high school that was notoriously a bad football program. He took him to the playoffs. He played QB and all that. But I think Texas Tech got themselves a dude here. And, I mean, because he's physically ready. And he's got the speed. I mean, we're talking 4.4 speed, and I think, he's got even some, 10.6 ish 100-meter stuff on the books in high school from a track standpoint. So, but he's a load, and I think he's going to get a big time opportunity here to make some noise. And if Cameron Valdez can't like stay healthy, and you've got your Bryson Donnells also has had a hard time staying healthy. I've been big on an Anquan Willis, okay, from Wichita Falls Rider.
Mm-hmm.
Although Anquan Willis is more of a bruiser, he doesn't have the speed. He's just going to pop you. He's more of a short yardage guy. And I think he's got some growing up to do in the offense and some of those things. But I'm just telling you, Cameron Dickey is a guy that everybody's impressed with. But he walks in with a lot of speed and a lot of size, and he's just a really, really good football player. Because what do you do with your best player at the high school level? You play him at quarterback. And that ought to tell you a lot about Cameron Dickey. So, yeah, we'll if he starts to make some noise, you heard it here first.
Hey, one more thing before we get out of here that I noticed in some media availability or conversation had as they kicked open spring camp. This was a conversation between Joey Maguire, and I had to rub my eyes to make sure I wasn't seeing Charlie Rich out there. No, it was the 806's own Silver Fox, Robert Giovanetti. And he asked Coach Maguire about his new offensive line coach and Clay Maguire. And, hey, do you have familiarity or a past with this guy? Coach Maguire started referencing a past with, I think, Clay Maguire's brother, who was on his Cedar Hill staff at one point in time. But the comment that stuck out to me was something to the effect of Coach Maguire talking about it not working out the first time they tried to hire Clay Maguire as an O-line coach. And I thought, wait, I hadn't really heard much about that. Maybe when Joey Maguire arrived in Lubbock. Do you have a feel for that situation? Has there already been a serious swing at bringing Coach Clay Maguire back to the LBK?
I think when Joey was trying to put his staff together and he was trying to figure out, the OC and the position coaches, I think he's been well aware of Clay Maguire. One, because of his ties to Texas Tech, but then two, we talked about that on yesterday's show. Think about all the guys that Clay has worked with offensively. I mean, and so. And that's the kind of offense that you have typically seen here. But when you've got all those connections with Cliff or Mike or Lincoln, and then obviously Jake Spavital, which ironically enough, Jake Spavital was coaching at Cal last year, and he was already gone and did not coach in the bowl game last year. But they got to see kind of a lot of Jake Spavital's work on film last year. But I just think there's a lot of familiarity with Joey and Clay, and a lot of crossover there. And so I think when he was initially trying to put his staff together and hadn't picked an OC and was just, I think that there was some flirtations there because there was some knowledge. And that's a tricky spot to hire out of order too.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, the O-line coach is very important to whoever the OC is. And you could have done it that way, but I don't know how serious it ever got, but it wasn't the first time that they had broached the subject. Let's put it that way. Was recently.
I just thought it was kind of interesting, and kind of like Juice Johnson. If this is someone that previously was already on his radar, and then becomes a part of his staff eventually, and maybe this is just a Tech fan and me digging too deep, but I was kind of encouraged by it to think like, okay, this is a guy that he wanted at some point previously, and for whatever reason didn't work out, wasn't able to connect those dots. But now he's here, and maybe there's even better of a fit possibly than I imagined. But we're just getting started, obviously, on the spring camp front, so plenty more to go there. But we are hoops heavy, I hope, from here on out, because we're getting you ready for a game day, and then we're talking about a win and preparing for another opponent on Friday. So hopefully an action-packed week for all the right reasons, Chris. Looking forward to getting back with you on game day to get ready for the Wolfpack coming up on the other side. Thanks for the time. Watch out for the bridge people. Enjoy Pittsburgh, and we'll visit with you again coming up soon.
Man, that'll do it for me from the Berg. If I see like Terry Bradshaw or Jerome Bettis or Mario Lemieux or somebody, Mike Tomlin, walking around, I'll be sure to let you know. I'll report back when we get a little news from this open practice. And it's a fun time of year, man. Please subscribe to Locked On Texas Tech. You know what to do. Smash that button, people, and we'll keep bringing you the best we can. Me and Coach Cowan here.
Yeah, and be on the lookout for that Jaromir Jagger guy. I think an heir to the Jaggermeister fortune as well. So many thanks passed off to that family also. All right. Many thanks to you for joining us for this episode. Make sure you're subscribed, like Chris said, on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Thanks for being out there. For Chris, I'm Casey, and we hope to see you back for an NCAA tournament game day edition of Locked On Texas Tech.